So Josh, you ready?
What's up, guys? This is an in-depth review of the Yarro Gamefold table. We are going to go through an unboxing, some initial impressions, and final review. So when approaching the table, I intentionally didn't watch any tutorials or read any guides, because when you get the table, it comes with a little QR code of assembly instructions. For starters, it definitely should just come with an instruction manual. It's not so complicated. The effort to pull out my phone and pull up this instruction video would have been more than just like a one sheet of the 3 steps involved in setting this thing up. So as a critique right there, it's like they definitely made this setup assembly video like months ago and then just didn't care enough to make a little cheat sheet for setting it up. But intentionally, I wanted to go in totally blind and then just see how quickly a engineer could assemble this table. I definitely learned a couple quick things. One person setting this up alone is definitely either inconvenient or long. I'd prefer every time to have a buddy, because 2 people setting up this table with a little bit of practice, I'd say only a little bit harder than it would be for one person to set up a normal folding table that like you'd get from like Costco. So the big reasons anyone would want to buy this table is, no question, it's because it is designed for its niche, right? You're not using a dining room table that's designed for dining and then using it because it's good enough for board games. This is a table that is designed from the ground up to accomplish 2 core things: be good and comfortable for board games to play on, and be portable. A couple of things that it does to achieve that goal is it fixes the dimensions, so it is significantly more comfortable for 6 players to sit around. The main way it does that is it's a little deeper, so people sitting on the long side have more space between them and the other players, and it is shorter, so people on the ends don't have to reach as far if there's something in the middle. And then lastly, the types of legs they used on the ends, they brought them more in towards the center of the table, not as close to the edge as in like standard folding table, and they're more of a square shape rather than that kind of hourglass shape a lot of folding table legs have. And that allows the people on the ends of the table to not only be less likely to bump their knees into the poles, but even if they do want to extend their legs more, they can extend it through the square rather than being blocked by some triangle thing in it. For the use case, just like any custom object, would your grandma want this table to play bridge? Probably not, right? But for someone who's looking for a unique, catered board game table, it definitely checks those boxes. What I'm seeing right now is the standard, like if you went to their website and bought another table, it's about $350 per table. And I don't believe that comes with additional accessories. And I'll be honest, that's definitely a steep price. You're paying a premium cost for a catered product, but I wouldn't exactly call it a premium product, because while they did put a lot of effort into designing the table for its use case, at the end of the day, it is still a folding table. It's your standard folding table materials for the legs, your standard folding table material for the table. And because of it, it's very strong along the edges, and it's kind of very strong down the middle because it has an extra bracket going down the middle. But when you get towards the center of each halves of the folding table, like there's definitely a lot of give. And it's kind of designed that, when I'm playing a board game, I'm not likely to be putting my body weight in the dead center of the table. But let's say you're a little heavier set and you're trying to reach across for something, putting your hand in the middle, you'll feel the table flex underneath you. Now it bounces back perfectly fine. But like I said, it's a $350 folding table. You're still getting a folding table. The grooves are really cool. It's just standard extruded aluminum. Anyone who's worked with extruded aluminum will notice it immediately. The idea is you can put all sorts of additional attachments. They sell a bunch. You could 3D print a bunch. If you're just used to extruded aluminum, it works the exact same. So pretty much anything you can think of putting in standard extrusions, you could put through this. I have seen some complaints online of people being like, oh, they just use cheap extruded aluminum and it looks bad and it gives that like, oh, that cheap factory look. And while I do definitely get that complaint, it's like it also gives you that universal aspect of it. It's, I can use anything that's very well documented. You can go on any website for 3D printing files and find stuff that will work with extruded aluminum, as opposed to a lot of other board game tables where if they made their super custom rail, well, now guess what? You have to use their super custom parts on it. So I personally have absolutely no problem with the extruded rail. It goes all the way around it. I think it's a lot of fun. It makes it it gives it a lot of heft. It makes it a lot stronger. That's what that rail does. A couple things I would wish to either add myself or have an attachment for is the top of the extrusion. I could definitely see that being a really cool card holder. You can't currently fit cards in it because they'll just fall over. But I might even design a little thing to fit in that extrusion. And that's the beauty of it, is people can think of these things and they go make them and they'll work because it's standard extruded aluminum. I really, really like the table. There's a couple of minor design things that just kind of baffle me. And it's absolutely the type of product, it's almost like you're like the first iPhone or like the very first VR headset. It's very clearly the version 1. It's absolutely the type of product where like a V3 of this table would probably be in every single person's home. When they iron out some of the kinks, like certain things where the clips that hold the table together when you're folding it up, those move freely. So rather than just like, oh, I'm done folding up the table, boom, put it together, don't worry about it. When you're folding it back up, you now have to make sure you line up the little clips so that it'll actually clip closed. That's just kind of like sloppy engineering. Like, and I'm sure they have some justification, probably to cut costs because this table already was getting way too bloated with features. But like that seems unnecessary to me. Same with when you were folding. So the table you can set up by just folding out the core legs, but it also has additional beams for strengthening. They're fantastic. I would seldom play without them. But when you're putting them away, they only clip to one side of the table and not the other side. So when you're folding the table back up, it's super likely for these bars to want to fold out. So what I actually have to do is I have to click the little thumb tab and extend it so that there's at least a little friction so I can close it together. So you've got these really crappy clips for closing it that really should have just been on these legs, and then they could have had a latch on the outside of the table to keep it closed. And like, you know, they've been working on this table for 2 years, and I thought of that in 2 days of using this table. So some minor things like that. The big takeaway, like I said, is a V3 of this table where they ironed out the kinks, some of the manufacturing. Another big thing is setting up the table. You have to completely flip the table upside down. Unlike kind of a standard folding table, if you're setting up solo, you just kind of have it on side and you kick the things out. But with this table, I found it best to set up by completely flipping it upside down, which is a lot more helpful with a second person. And you've got to raise both of the legs by individually pressing in one of those little thumb tabs that goes through the hole and raising it up, because you really got to make sure you don't get any twist on the legs. Otherwise, it'll get really jammed and really stuck. So those are definitely a couple of key takeaways that I got from the table. Where if I was just a person who hosts occasional board game nights and lived alone without someone to help me put up this table, those would give me real gripes if I had to set up and tear down this table for every single game night. And yeah, one person could definitely get better at it, but like I said, you can either set up the table fast and very challengingly, or take a while and not struggle as much. Thanks everyone for watching. Hope you enjoyed our first post to the brand new GameVault YouTube channel, and stay tuned for more content as we open a brand new game store as a bunch of absolute amateurs who barely know what we're doing. But fortunately, we've got a great team and a lot of useful advice, so follow along if you're curious as to where this leads.